everybody. Welcome to yet another episode of The Rose Show. I am your host, Jay. Who else but me? And today I have got the great Tom Arnold with me. Man, it was such an honor to talk to this man. I really think people are going to enjoy this conversation. He is an absolute pro, and you could tell almost immediately that he is. But I want to say real fast, because I know that this is going to be another one of those crossover episodes that I have where, you know, people are new to the show because they see the guests, and which is great. That's what I have them here for. I want people to experience this for the first time. So if you've been here for a long time, since episode 1 even, I appreciate your support. But let me talk to the new people who are coming here today. My name is Jay. This is The Rose Show. Basically what I do here is a variety show. As you can see from everything behind me, I'm into a little bit of everything. A little bit of comics, music, video games, actors, obviously, movies. Professional wrestling is a big thing for me. So if you're brand new to the show, just why don't you go ahead and go to the channel, give it a scroll, see if there's anything out there that you like. Like I said, I do a little bit of everything for everyone, and because I'm into a little bit of everything, so it's easy for me to do that. So go ahead and give it a look. Who knows? You might find something. Are you a fan of MMA? I got Ken Shamrock. Are you a fan of underground music? I got Lee Carver from Ala Zulu. Are you a fan of professional wrestling? I got Eric Bischoff. I got so many people you can choose from. So go ahead and go down the list. Check it out. You might find your next favorite show right here on The Rose Show. And also, don't forget to like and subscribe. I've got a goal set for myself. I want to be at 500 subscribers on YouTube by the end of summer 2024. So if you could help me out, I would much appreciate it. And it's never a bad thing to like and comment on this episode or any other you enjoy as well. So let's go ahead and get into it with my guest, Tom Arnold, right after a word from my sponsor. All right, everybody, it's time to stop and let you know about today's sponsor of the show, Crazy Martin's in Piqua, Ohio, one of my favorite places in the entire world to go to. Crazy Martin's has provided their customers with quality products for over 20 years, from ashtrays to water pipes and everything in between. Stop in, check out their selection, and of course, check out their pinball machines. With over 20 pins to choose from, there is something for everyone. Crazy since 1996. I don't just say this about every place. I love going to Crazy Martin's. I've always loved going to Crazy Martin's ever since I was of age to go to Crazy Martin's. It's one of my favorite places in the entire world. Me and my wife go there almost every Sunday to play pinball machines. It is one of the funnest spots in Ohio you could possibly find. It is in Piqua, Ohio. Check out their website at www.crazymartins.com. What is going on, everybody? Welcome to yet another episode of The Rose Show. As always, I am your host, Jay. Who else but me? And today, I got a great guest with me. My guest today is credited with just shy of 200 acting roles on IMDB. He's one of the few people in the business that no matter what your favorite movie is, there's a good chance he's probably got a role in it. He's the former host of the best damn sports show, period, and somebody who I honestly think is a Hollywood legend, Mr. Tom Arnold. My friend, how are we doing today?
Good, buddy. How you doing? I'm sorry. We're getting this thing set up here. Your backdrop is much better than mine. I'm in my kid's game room. This is the best I could do today, man.
It's all good. It is all good. It is all good, my man. It's just an honor to have you. Well, like I said before we hit record, today we just kind of want to go over some highlights of your career and just some things that I was curious about. But how about we go ahead and you just start with your background?
I was born in Tumble, Iowa. It's a small meatpacking town, southeast Iowa. Grew up there. Worked on the farms. Did farm stuff. Worked on the kill floor of a meatpacking plant for 3 years after high school to save money to go to college. Ended up getting fired, and then but I ended up at the University of Iowa. My dream was to be a stand-up comedian, and I thought, well, if I could be a stand-up comedian, I'll tell you why I wanted to be a stand-up. Because my dad, we're raised by a single dad. My kids, I'm a single dad too, so there's a history. And my kids are 10 and 8. But my dad, the only time we really heard him laugh was when there was a Bob Hope special on. Bob Hope was a comedian that would go around in 70s and 80s and 90s. He'd go around to, Vietnam or South Korea or wherever to entertain the troops. Something called the USO, and he'd go and he told jokes. He had beautiful women that were intentionally sexy, and my dad loved it. I'd hear him laughing. We'd hear our dad laughing downstairs. I said, well, whatever that Bob Hope does, I think I want to do that. So I want to hear my dad laugh like that. So I want to be a stand-up comedian. I said, if I get on TV once, everyone in my hometown will like me, which turns out not to be true. But I started working at the stand-up clubs. I spent 5 years in Minneapolis, 83 to 88, which was a great time to be in Minneapolis. I worked at First Avenue, which is a club, while they were filming Purple Rain. So right place, right time, and I loved it. And eventually, when I did get to Hollywood, one of the first things I did was a Bob Hope special. And Bob Hope was
Oh,
very
wow.
cool. And he called my dad and wrote, he signed all his stuff, his books, and wrote all this to my dad. And so my dad, back in Ottumwa, Iowa, in the same living room, same TV that he used to watch Bob Hope when I was a little kid, is now watching Bob Hope with me, the adult me. And so that's a kind of magic that, maybe you get lucky and things happen. But then I realized, well, what now? I've done the Bob Hope special. What do I do now? But I'd come out there, I started to stand up, and then back in 1983, what year is it? That was a long time ago. I met my first ex-wife, who was a stand-up comedian, Roseanne, who lived in Denver, and was very funny. She wasn't famous yet, but she was very funny. And the guy that owned the club that I worked at in Minneapolis said, "Hey, I saw this woman in Denver. I'm bringing her in. You guys do the weekend together. You'll hit it off." And it was great. I never seen she was very funny comedian, and her point of view was so different. Me coming
Sure.
from a meatpacking plant, and then her back in those days, she was like a feminist and very liberal politically, and so I liked that about her. She was older than me, but she was a mom, and there's a lot of things that I was impressed. But her stand up was just killer. And then I think she said I always tell people, men know we're good looking, but if you tell us we're funny, then you got us forever. That's she said
Yes,
that
yes.
I was funny, and and then we started just travel around doing shows, hanging out, partying very hard. And because I think she thought, well, this guy just came from a meatpacking plant and he will defend me, which is true, that kind of a guy. And then in 1988, she had a TV show, got a TV show, and said, I want you to, first she wanted me to play the husband. And I was like, that seems like, I'm not, isn't there someone more qualified to do that? But and then she said, well, you definitely have to write the show because my voice, you write all this stuff for me. And so I moved out from the Midwest to LA in January of 1988 to write the Roseanne show, which I did for
Hmm.
6 years. And on the Roseanne show, I was writing. I go, okay, I was a stand-up comedian. Now I'm a writer. That's cool. And then the second year of the show in '89, Roseanne and I had become a couple, and the other writer's like, you got to be on the show because they'll watch. And so I was like, okay, well, I guess I'm an actor now. And it was very nerve-wracking, but so since then, I'll do, as things come up, I'll do whatever, I'll write or I'll act or I'll do stand up. The last few years, I've really gotten back in stand up, and I really enjoy it because, and I did enjoy it for a while. I think it's because I never stayed on it. And you really want to be good if you're doing stand up, and you want to stay on top of stuff. And, when you're a person that people know who they are, you'll get hired to do stand up or host big corporate events for really good money. But it's hard to keep your chops up as a stand up. And so also because my life has changed so much, and for the last 7 years, I've been a single dad with these little kids. And so, you want your stand up to be about your life. So there's a lot of things about my life with the little kids and being in court, and there's police stuff, just nonsense. But then I figure out, well, that's what I want to talk about, because And there's also not a lot of 65-year-old guys that have 8 and 10-year-old kids. It turns out, which is fortunate for me because March 6th I turned 65, and I went down to the insurance or the Social Security office. I went right there, and because I needed Social Security, and whatever kind of I have medical from SAG, and I do work, but I thought this is my Social Security. I got to go get that. I've been paying it since I was 12 years old. So
Sure.
they said, "Hey, listen, you should wait till you're 66 and 10 months to get it because that's the maximum." And I was like, "That's 22 months from now. I don't know where I'll be. Let's do it now." And then I said, "Can I get my kids? I lost my kids' Social Security cards." And they were like, "Whoa, you have kids?" I go, "Yeah." "How old? 10 and 8? Can you prove that?" So I went back, brought my custody thing down, and I was nervous because I thought, well, what are they going to take some money of mine and save for I don't know what's going to happen. And I brought this stuff for the kids, and then it turns out you get extra money if you have little kids. So I was very happy about that, and yeah, that's what. So we're our life is good. It's a little hectic from time to time. We have downsized our life significantly since they were born. In fact, we lived at a house on the same Benedict Canyon in Beverly Hills where Roseanne and I lived. And then for the last 30
Oh,
years, I've lived there. And then when my kids are born, and we don't live there anymore. We had to downsize. And my kids are like, "Daddy, can we drive by the old house?" And I'm like, "Okay, let's try." And they'll park out front, and they go, "You think they'll let us come inside?" And go, "Absolutely not." Yeah. And so, no, no. But your life changes, and,
yeah.
and for the better. There's nothing I have ever enjoyed more than being a father.
Yeah, that's absolutely awesome to hear, my man. Well, going back to your childhood here for a second, in my research, I read that at a young age you were diagnosed with autism. Is that correct?
Well, as Asperger's, yeah,
Oh,
which is
okay.
for I'm definitely on the spectrum. I think that my dad and stepmom tried to treat that, especially my stepmom who wanted to be a doctor or something. The
Mm.
first thing they did was sent me to the University of Iowa. This is pretty early in the, when they were just beginning to diagnose. By the way, the guy Asperger, that the Asperger syndrome was named after, was a horrible person, like a
Really?
Nazi. Yeah, you'll find out later. Oh shit, this name Asperger. Who is that guy? Research it. It's awful. But they put me on some medication, and I didn't like that. I could feel. I liked feeling like I felt. I liked
Yeah.
feeling a little bit of this, and my stepmother was experimenting with the medication, and it would be I'd open up a sandwich, it'd be these little pills, that Ritalin type pills, in a smiley face in my sandwich, and so I would not eat that. But she did. They
Mm.
started grinding it up, putting my cereal, and I just remember the feeling of my brain going, "Uh oh, it's getting warm." She got me, you know. But it's something you work on. I think we're all most people are on the spectrum some, and I've been very lucky that I've got tools to deal with it. And again, if you have kids, you have to focus on them. And one of the things I did when my daughter was 18 months, I went out. I did hosted a show for Music Cares. It's this great organization that helps musicians who are struggling with mental health and drugs and alcohol. And we had a huge concert, and I hosted it. And like Billy Idol, a lot of people I worshipped were in the concert. And I came home and I was feeling good about myself. Babysitter goes home, and then I went into my office, which I always did, and kids are asleep. Okay, I'm going to get the house. I'll get on my computer and check out the sports and this and that and politics and I would do that for hours. Like all of a sudden, it's like hours later. And this time, I'm doing it. And I looked down at my daughter, who's 18, was standing next to me. She's like, "Daddy, come to bed." And I was like, "Oh, honey, oh my God. Oh, you got to go back to bed." By the way, she'd come down the stairs. We had stairs, and at the top of the stairs was a gate. So she wouldn't fall down the stairs, but she'd open it and walked all the way down the stairs and got into my office. And I said, "Honey, I'll be right up. You got to go back to bed. I'll be up in 5 minutes." And then I went back and started looking at my computer, and then I realized, oh, she's not leaving. She's right here. And I looked at her, and I realized, oh my gosh, she knows every lie I've ever told. Like she knew I was lying, and I didn't know I was lying. She knew I was lying. So we made it. I made a deal from that moment. I don't say I'll be 5 minutes unless I mean I'll be 5 minutes. And they put me on the what clock, and so when they say, Daddy, I want to do this thing, and if I'm working, I'll think, how long do I really need to? Do I need 12 minutes? And I'll say that. I never go beyond that, but I'll say that. And then when they get home from school, I'll say, what's going on with the homework? Let's do it. I need 5 minutes. I go, do you need 5 minutes? Because I'm going to set this timer. So we all do it, and it keeps you, sort of reined in. I mean, there's a lot. I get up and my mirror, my bathroom has Post-its all over it about what the day, I do it just to keep everything. And some of the Post-its will say, hey, go to your desk and look at the Post-its there. And, but because you can't mess around, you can't be late when you have kids. You can't, you got to keep track of a lot of stuff. And so I don't know what part of that is being on the spectrum, or just getting older, or just having too much information. I think when you get older, your hard drive, sometimes stuff is not as important. I will say stuff doesn't stick as much. I used to be able to repeat something and read something and go, okay, I got to do this on this date, and then it would log in, it would stay in there. But now I don't trust that, which is a good thing. You got to double check stuff. But you can live you could live a pretty good life. I think my son may have a little bit of this, and he's very good on the computer. He's very good on video games. You learn to deal with these things.
Yeah, sure, that's fair. So I think what a lot of people first remember you from is True Lies. Well, Roseanne, obviously, but your more acting career, once you said you got into it, True Lies was the number one. But for me, yes, Roseanne, again, that was number one. But for me, as a earlier stage in life, it was Austin Powers. When you did your cameo in Austin Powers, did anybody really know that this thing was going to blow up as big as it did? Because at the time, it's hard for people to understand now what it was like when that movie came out. That movie took over the planet at one point. Nobody thought it was going to be as big as it was.
Well, never assume. I mean, we always do. Oh, this is going to be huge, or this is going to be terrible, or this is going to be. You just don't know how things will turn out. I'd hosted Saturday Night Live three times, and I knew Mike Myers from Saturday Night Live, and he'd had a movie, his first movie called I Married an Axe Murderer, which didn't do as well as he would have liked it. And so Demi Moore was producing Austin Powers, and she called me and said, hey, listen, there's a part, we love you. We only can see you doing this part. And please help out Mike, help us out. Come down and do this part. And then I'm sending the script to the hotel. I read it. It was a guy taking a shit. I'm like, is that the only person they can think of? That's hilarious. So I did go down, and it's funny because I worked one day on that movie, and people remember it. And you can work 7 months on another movie, and nobody gives a shit. So I was. It was great fun. You get to ad lib a little bit, and so yeah, it's. It's something I can tell what people like, because sometimes I do Comic-Cons and they'll bring pictures or they'll have pictures or whatever, and specific things. I did a Friday the 13th. Freddie, one day of that, Roseanne and I did. We did because we're like super fans of the series, and then these horror fans, man, they're the most loyal fans. They'll light up.
Oh yeah,
I've seen them light up for a woman that was in The Exorcist for 17 seconds. The original, it's a big line. So that's one way to gauge it. But my first scene in a movie before True Lies, before this, was in a movie called Hero with Dustin Hoffman. And my scene was with Dustin Hoffman. I remember like, wow, this is crazy that I'm in a scene with Dustin freaking Hoffman. And he was great. And, I've done a few things, and I still do. I have a couple movies starting. One starting, what is it, April this month, and then I got another one starting in June, and I book stand up in between and whatever I can do. Again, I have 4 ex-wives and 2 little kids. I will have to work forever, but you try to, and in our business, we were on strike for a long time. The writers first, the actors, and now there might be a crew strike, the crew
Mm.
union, and it could happen in May. And so people are a little tentative about starting projects. So it's been a little bit of a road. And then, of course, during COVID, the business completely shut down. I had to go to Italy and the UK to make movies, make any money, because they were a little bit looser on the COVID stuff. Although Italy, if you really got hit first of COVID worldwide, it killed
Yeah.
doctors, killed everybody. But Italy is an interesting place because if you were making a movie, you're like an essential worker. Like, and they've worked out. You can figure anything out in Italy. You can, the producers are like figuring out with the government. But I would be the only person on the highway. I go. I stayed. The first movie I did there, this big, huge, beautiful hotel. I was the only person. It was like The Shining, and then I'd go. Guy pick you up and go to work with the only people on the highway or whatever. And they'd get to work and they'd come back in my little bubble, and I kind of enjoyed that. But we were always scared shitless that we were going to get COVID though, because if you got COVID, they had to
Sure.
send everybody home. You wouldn't get
Yeah.
paid, which is a frightening. You take a test before you get on the plane, and then after right as soon as you land in Italy, I was always like fingers crossed on this. So it's not as bad now. Obviously, COVID's not as bad. The requirements. I mean, they were bad until I think last year. I think first week of school this last year, I had a job at Paramount. It is a 3-test thing, and to be on this show that I really liked, did a reoccurring, and the kids got COVID. Night before school, I gave a COVID test. Like, damn, okay, here's what I'm gonna do. I'm supposed to start Friday at over at Paramount. Okay, here, I'm not going to test on Friday. I'm not going to please get over. And what ended up happening is they got over it. They tested free Thursday night. I checked myself. I did not have COVID. I got to do the job, and because I was like, kids, if you cost me this job by freaking COVID, a lot of bad. So, but the businesses, and I do movies now. It's funny because especially during the strike, or sometimes they'll give you waivers to do little movies, and there's movies that people put together, and they're science fiction movies, and they have they're crowdfunded or something. And I know I did a few where you give them 1 day or 3 days, and they'll pay in advance, which is kind of, and you get there. And I remember the first one, I'm like there, and I'm looking around, and there's huge crowd scene, and every person has a line of the extras. I was thinking, they aren't actors. I could just kind of tell. So I started talking to them, and they'd all put money in to be in the movie. And that was the thing. They got a line. And these people travel from city to city and it's like something they all do. It's like being deadheads or something. And they do it. So I enjoyed that. And what I do is I'll say, hey, I'll give you 1 12-hour day. And I mean 12 hours. Like, and they'll have me in the morning at 60 pages, which is impossible. And I look at this is very ambitious, but they want to put me throughout the movie, so it appears. And when it gets to the 11th hour, I'll say to the director, buddy, you got to kill me now in this next scene. They wanted to kill me. I go, you got to kill me now. It's time's up. And they will do it. They're like, okay, let's rewrite everything. Here we go. And so those are the kind of movies that I've done a lot of. You got to kill me now movies.
That's awesome. Well, speaking of movies that, can end up with death, two of my favorite movies that you're in is Exit Wounds and Cradle to the Grave. I was a huge fan of those that hit my time period right as I was, growing up, a teenager. In Exit Wounds, more, I actually showed my wife for the first time doing research on this because she'd never seen it before, but I love it. It's absolutely great. When you think about those two, what is there anything like any cool stories you got from those two movies? And then when you're done, I kind of have a follow up on Exit Wounds.
Exit was, so Steven Seagal, and, he's an interesting guy. You get you come to the set, you see these action stars, you kind of size them up, and I was pretty sure I could take Steven Seagal. I just he's a big boy, but he was he has an interesting personality, and my trailer was between him and DMX, and DMX, just the different music coming out of the trailer, and DMX was he was in both Cradle to Grave and X, was a very sweet guy. He seemed like, and I don't know, he'd done a ton of movie stuff, but it would seem to me that he'd be driving to set and go, and then get out and go, oh, I guess we're doing a movie here today. Like he'd have a beer, and he kept adopting pit bulls on the way to the set who were so loud. He had remote control cars on the set like a kid. I really enjoyed it. That movie, Anthony Anderson, who just texted me, is a very funny guy. And I played was a TV host, right? But we never used the TV set they built. And so at the end of the movie, I said, we just give us a roll of film. Anthony Anderson and I will sit up here and riff.
That's what I wanted to ask you about right there. Was that all improv?
Yeah, it was all improv. And the best thing was, it plays over the credits. And one of the reviews of the movie for the New York Times said, if you walk by the theater and listen during the credits, you'd think it was the best movie ever made. But because it was very funny. And so I had a very good time with those guys. Andrzej Markowiak directed Romeo Must Die, all three of that film series. And then the next movie was Jet Li, was the instead of Steven Seagal. And I worship Jet Li, man. He great. He's a very small. His hands are like that big. He's this tall, and he can beat the shit out of everybody. Like he was the judo champion of all of China. Like he is for real. And so we had a good time. Similar cast, similar thing. Did a little riff at the end. But it was amazing, and watching Jet Li do his stuff. He brought his choreographer for his fight stuff that he'd used, and he done a movie called Hero that was just beautiful, amazing. And I remember Tito Ortiz and Chuck Liddell were in the cage to fight him. And before they started, he went up to him and goes, "Let's practice," or whatever. His guy said it, and they're like, "Oh, okay." And he goes, they go at half speed. He goes, "Oh, let's go for it." No star goes, "Let's really go for this fight scene before we're even filming." So these guys, they're much bigger than him, and very skilled MMA guys. They would come at him, and they could not get their hands on. He'd get behind them.
Wow.
And it kept happening. And take one of their fingers, and they have to submit. He does a lot of stuff. And he also, in the movie, he's running up the cage, the side, the cage there. He can do that. There's a lot of stuff that actual skill that he'd do, and he really thought things through. And those guys are like, wow, we've never encountered anything like this, So
yeah,
it's great fun. We had a great time.
Yeah, Jet Li. This is actually the second episode in a row I'm talking about this movie. It's fairly unknown, but it's literally in my top 3. Jet Li's movie is called Fist of Legend. By far one of my favorite movies of all time, and it is something you have to be into kung fu flicks to really get into. But I think it's very well done. I thought the writing was well done, the fight scene was well done. But my first interaction with Jet Li was Cradle to the Grave. It was two, and again, those two movies came out at the perfect time for me, growing up. And again, that was something I wanted to ask you about, was that scene at the end of Exit Wounds improv, because you can just tell you guys are just going at it. And I was, at the time, there was a local movie theater where I live, and it was not a whole lot of people went to it. But you could hear me laughing during that scene from all the way in the lobby. And I know because my sister was out there at the time, and she walked in. She goes, "Would you tone it down?" I'm like, "I can't. I'm laughing so hard. It's hilarious." Definitely recommend that movie if you've never seen it. But shortly after those, go right ahead. Yeah.
Let me tell you a Jet Li thing. So in 1989, they had this thing called Tiananmen Square in China. And it was the first time I'd ever seen live inside communist China. CNN was there. And these college students were at Tiananmen Square standing up to the communist tanks. I mean, it was very inspiring, and never seen anything like it. And of course, eventually the tanks killed everybody. But I was inspired, and so I called my tattoo guy, my biker buddy tattoo. I go, Gil, get over here. I want the Chinese symbol for love of all mankind on my leg. There you go. And so as support for these students, to
Yeah.
pay the ultimate price. And so when I started the first day of Cradle of the Grave, I was like, how do I bond with Jet Li here, man? I got to be his buddy. And then I kind of pulled my thing up and showed him, and I go, and he starts laughing. I go, why are you laughing? And he's like, man love. I go, not man love. This dumbass, this is a Chinese symbol for love of all mankind. And he's like, Tom, I am Chinese. That says man love. I go, does it? Okay. I'm going to keep it to remind myself I'm an asshole, because only an asshole goes to their biker buddy and goes, hey, put the hardest language in the world on my leg forever, please.
And what can you even say? Like, you can't even defend that.
Yeah, well, I did at first, was just crazy. I go, hey, buddy, not wrong. This is, and he's like, I am Chinese. I go, okay. So, great. It was great.
That is great. That is great. Well, shortly after those came out, I was never really big into sports growing up. But with that being said, I saw you on something called the Best Damn Sports Show, period. And you guys at the time had one of the best shows on television. And again, I didn't watch sports a whole lot. I was into music and girls. Those were my two things growing up in high school. But seeing the presentation that you guys put on the show was enough to get me to watch. I loosely knew some NFL, but it wasn't anything like where I am now, where, again, Cincinnati Reds jersey, and I'm a huge Reds fan now.
Yeah, it was Best Damn Sports Show, period. It was a great experience. I did, I think, 4 or 5 years on it. It was on Fox Sports, and the group of people that I had, I mean, it was amazing, because I met a guy from Fox at one of the NFL fundraisers. He said, hey, we want to do a show where there's a comedian, a basketball, football, baseball guy, and would you be interested in doing it? I said, well, who do you got for the athletes? And he said, I got John Kruk. I go, and I always loved watching John Kruk on Letterman, and very funny baseball guy, big and made fun of himself, but he was excellent. And so I said, okay, well, let's try it. I said, let's go in the studio and shoot one. I did not have any faith it would work, but I thought, well, it'll be fun. We'll try it. We talked about who the football person was, and I wanted Michael Irvin, and he'd just been arrested for some cocaine thing. I said, well, we'll wait. Well, but let's have Deacon Jones in the meantime, and different people. Chris Rose, who's from Cincinnati. I think Chris Rose, is he Cleveland or Cincinnati? The main guy. And by the way, all these people have gone on to great careers in sports. Chris Rose, yes. You'd watch NFL Network or Major League Baseball. He's just giving the highlights. He's just excellent. And Michael Irvin is TV gold, and John Sally does a million things, and Kruk is a broadcaster now. So all the guys, did well, and it was very fun because we didn't have any rules, because nobody had ever done, and we did a lot of music stuff, and we did a lot of weird stuff that you would not see on a sports show now, and we got away with it, and the only problem was back then Fox Sports 1 is a network national. Now they didn't have that, so we were on 19 regional networks, and you couldn't ever tell people when the show would be on. It might be on at 9:13 in Cleveland after the hockey game's over, or in New York at 11:12. It's important to be able to say, here's when the show is on, like regular network shows. But I loved it. It was a great experience, and I mean, can you imagine getting paid very well for talking about sports? Like, that was a dream come true. That's something I do for free, and so that was great. It was great.
Yeah. And I have a fairly large professional wrestling audience. I wouldn't say mostly wrestling, but it's probably about 50-50. Mm-hmm. And in my research, I saw that the show actually teamed up with Total Nonstop Action. Yeah. It was an episode called the Best Damn Wrestling Event, period. Any memories on that one?
I think I wrestled. Did I wrestle a little person or something? I do.
I'm not sure. I just got hip to it when I saw. I'm going to go back and watch it after this, but I just got hip to it.
here's the thing. I grew up in Ottumwa, Iowa, and wrestling, professional wrestling was our jam. I
Okay.
Andre the Giant came to Ottumwa, Iowa to wrestle at our Coliseum, and
Mm.
at the end of his match, I got up over the rope, jumped into the ring, touched him, and then I got the shit beat out of me by the security guy. But it was worth it.
Ah,
My friends and I'm like, it's worth it. I touched him. But there were so many, wrestling. I just love the history of it. I love
yeah.
it's still, I'll watch old clips, new clips, whatever I'll do. I just enjoy the hell out of it. And I love the lower level leagues and, just the history of the stories and stuff. And I see a lot of those guys when I do at the Comic Cons, and they do very well. And it's great. Sergeant Slaughter was at the one, and with my kids and I, and Sergeant Slaughter is a very intelligent man. He's a big dude. He puts you in the thing, but he's very smart. A lot of these guys is way smarter than you'd imagine, and very cool. They've dealt with stuff. They've dealt with physical stuff, maybe some alcohol stuff, as I have, and whatever. But they are just very cool. They're great storytellers, and it's a lot of nostalgia from when I was young and growing up, and it's something I just love. I mean, I can't. It's just the way it is. And I grew up in Iowa, where our college wrestling, we're the best in the country. Dan Gables, he was our coach. He was won the gold medal. He did everything. He's the greatest college coach of any kind, I think, ever. His record, still a friend, and wrestling is very hard.
Yes.
And in high school, you can either play basketball or wrestle. And I'm like, screw that, I'm going to play basketball. But they work so hard. And I remember at the University of Iowa, we had very good football teams and very good wrestling teams, best. And at the bar time, we'd go out to the bar, we'd go drink at these bars on the mall, it's called outdoor. And then we go out at 2 a.m. when the bars close, and small wrestlers would fight giant football players. They're all having a rivalry. And it was, you get one of those little guys gets you below the knees or gets behind you, and they just were so tough. And the thing about MMA that I like is because there was a time when you could wrestle, you could go all the way, win the gold medal, and then what? And you still haven't made any money. Their whole life is 30 years, 20. They've done this thing, and now they got that thing. And unless they're, go into the WWE or whatever, there's not a limited, they have to have a personality to do that too. It's not easy. You can win 5 gold medals and not translate to that sport. It's like you could be the Hall of Fame football player and not be able to communicate. Not a second. People like Michael Irvin, Michael Strahan, who started on my show, you could tell immediately, oh, these guys got it. They got that thing. So when MMA, because there is part, the wrestling is part of it. If you're an excellent wrestler, the punching is part of it. The rest, but I saw a lot of guys with cauliflower ears in that sport. I'm like, they got a place for them though. You got to learn a little bit some other things, but I'm always glad to see when wrestlers can be a part of something like that and make some money because they deserve it.
Yeah, absolutely. And to basically what you said too, there was a Kurt Angle documentary that came out about, I think, like 6 months ago or something, and he addresses the fact that both him and Ronda Rousey addressed the fact you can win a medal, you can work your whole life for it, and then you think, hey, I won this medal, my life is set now. It's the complete opposite of that.
Well, Kurt Angle was the example I was going to use because I do see him at these things, and I also see him get paid stacks of money. So he does well at these things. I mean, he's got the bona fides of anybody, but it doesn't necessarily transfer. Ronda Rousey, I love the way she came on the scene. And she actually, I did one of these battles of the network stars or whatever, and she was one of the judges. And she and I were messing. We're a swimming thing, and kind of messing around with her. I'm taller than her, and she ends up whipping me around and throwing me in the water, like for real. Like, and I grew up with some tough women. My sister was a brawler in prison and stuff. In Iowa, there's some tough, but she, I realized, oh yeah, she has that thing. And during my sports show, I'd sit next to guys who were the same size, 6'2", whatever I weigh, to 220, 225, and I'd look at them and go, I am the same size as this guy who played professional football. But I also got to see, they have a magic and it turns on in this competition thing, and they'll put you on the ground. Like it's like all of them. Every sport has those. The hockey guys. The hockey guys are the best in a fight, to have your back in a close fighting thing, because they will. First of all, they'll always fight for you. They'll always have your back. They'll always. And they learn to fight in such tight quarters that if you're going to pick someone to get in a bar fight with you, like football players are giant, and that you can see them, and basketball players are terrible fighters. But hockey guys, I spent a lot of time and had a lot of fun with hockey guys, and they're great, generous people. They're fundraisers, and then they're disgusting. Their partying is just that there's nothing held back. So yeah. It's man, you got to remember Ronda Rousey came on like a flash, but in that sport, the thing my Fox Sports had the first match, and when I was on my sports show, people are talking, well, is this too violent? Is it too? And I enjoy it. I enjoyed the combat stuff, but they had to get some rule, and Fox's the first thing they hosted, the main event got over in 3 seconds because a guy just started, and they're like, "Oh shit, what do we do now?"
I remember that. Yeah.
So you got to think like that. I mean, it's a sport that can be over quick. Yeah. I mean, and it's but I think they've perfected it. The UFC does a great job of perfecting it. It's open to women now, which every time when I was younger, people were like, women can't do this. We will not pay to see women hitting each other, and it's all bullshit, because eventually, you see how great the best women are. It's like women's basketball. I'm an Iowa Hawkeye. Our women's basketball team is excellent, and there was a time years ago where people like, women can't play the sports, can't play basketball, and more people watch the women now than the men. And it was always like that in Iowa growing up. The women's I grew up, there was 6-on-6. 3 on women's sport, 3 forwards that never left that half the court, 3 guards that never left that half the court. And what they do is they'd have these really tall, thick women who just had to stand in one place and get the ball. She scores 80 points. Like my friend averaged 66 points a game. You'd get it down, and and then people are like, well, when it goes to 5-on-5, women will not be able to compete. And obviously, they do. So anytime society's like, well, we aren't ready for this change where women punch each other or dunk or, it always, if you're old enough, like I am, to look back, you go, oh no, this is happening. It's best just to enjoy it. And because otherwise you're one of these guys like, oh, I have these rules. And then, and because women if you really love the sports that we love, and women love them, and also women announcers are like, oh, no woman announcer. And there's some great women.
Doris Burke.
Yeah, she's great.
Mm-hmm.
So we sat a long time. We're like, this are the rules: man rules, women rules, and that just never. It's best not to jump on that train too early.
Yeah. And I remember that main event you were talking about on Fox. It was, if I believe correctly, it was Junior Dos Santos and Cain Velasquez. I was a MMA super fan at that time. Oh, wow. And I remember we watched the entire card on the internet. And again, this was like 10 years ago, something like that. So there wasn't a whole lot of streaming at that point in time. No. But we watched the whole card on the internet, and then the main event came on Fox Sports, and like you said, it was over like that, and everybody was like, what the hell? Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it was over. But then they figure out, okay, this could happen. What are we going to do so that we have a show? Because it's always a show. The MMA's, it's a TV show. It's an entertainment. Yeah. And it's a sport, and there's a winner and a loser, but it's an entertainment, so it has to be. And people apparently need a lot of entertainment. It's got to be a big thing. My son, who's 10, loves Jake Paul and Logan Paul. I get them mixed up. And so the first fights that he and I sat and got off paid for were, is it Jake Paul or Logan Paul that boxes? I don't know.
Jake, that would be Jake.
Yeah, and he's fighting Mike Tyson, who I know. Mike Tyson would come on the sports show a lot. And one time he put me. I teasing him about biting the Evander Holyfield's ear, and he put me in a headlock, and it ripped my ear. Just him trying to be friendly. So I, as an older man, am super excited about that fight. It's like the excitement you used to have, when George Foreman came back in the ring. When George Foreman was first boxing, against Ali. I remember, okay, Ali's going to get killed. This guy kills everybody. And then the Thrill in Manila happened, amazing thing. And George Foreman gets knocked out, and Ali outsmarts him. And then when he came back as older, I'm like, I'm going to be on the George Foreman train here. And I was up in Vegas. He was fighting Michael Moore, and I think he was losing. And then, bam, he got him on the chin, and I was like, that's any way you can extend the sport or make it more like where I feel like, oh, that's my guy, this is my age, this is whatever. So the Mike Tyson thing, we're very excited about that. So we'll see what happens.
Well, this wasn't anything I had on my notes or anything to talk about today, but since we're here, do you think boxing, other than the obvious celebrity super fights like your Jake Paul versus Mike Tyson or Jake Paul versus Tyrone Woodley, whoever it might be, do you think boxing could ever regain that kind of momentum? Because you're right, at one point in time, it was a big deal. People all around the world. I remember being in elementary school when Evander Holyfield got his ear ripped off, and everyone the next day was talking about it. Now, not so much. Do you think boxing will ever get to that point again, or do you think MMA is just so strong it's not going to be a thing?
Well, I think I think if you get a couple superstars that people are very connected to, I mean, that's always what it was before. There'd be these guys, Frazier, Ali, Foreman, whatever, and but they have to be sort of entertaining. Larry Holmes, I don't think lost any fights, and he was great. He was brilliant, but he wasn't that entertaining. Evander Holyfield was not that entertaining until Tyson bit his ear off. So, it's a show. You've got to do it. I mean, it's hard when you have Muhammad Ali, his show of his whole boxing, and what the content he gave, and this and that. And, it's hard to other people. How do they live up to that? I mean, he's still, the most respected, enjoyed. He's political. He stood up for civil rights. He did this. He did that. I think it's hard to get that. I think there's always ways, especially if people start young. Right now, when people start boxing, kids, whatever, they're looking to MMA. They're going, here's how this thing ends. I don't see a lot of upside to doing boxing, but this Jake Paul, who, first of all, I assume he's just going to get his ass kicked every time. He's got a great body, but he wasn't a boxer. Like he just I don't know how old he was, 20, and I'm going to be a boxer, which nobody does. Like, I'm going to play in the NFL. And he has done amazing, and he's wrestled. One of them, I'm very confused on which is which, but one of them's wrestled like legitimate, professional wrestlers, and that's hard. And these guys are very wealthy. They've sold. One of them has this Prime Energy, Prime hydration drink that my son and his friends have bought thousands of bottles and I did an interview with the UFC thing. They're like, can you get us the Prime Energy UFC bottle? It's that entertainment that, I think if there's something I learned from listening to my kids to see how they receive content, how, in the 80s, when I started television, there were 3 networks. Fox wasn't even a network then. So if you did something like Roseanne, you go on Johnny Carson, you kill, you get a sitcom, you get $200 million. That's how. Okay, and then things start changing with cable, and things diversify. In 1989, when I appeared on the Roseanne show for the first time, 50 million people watched. That's a There's something now. If you get 5 million, that's a huge hit. 4, 3 every week. That's a huge hit. So things are a lot different there. The good news is there's more ways to do whatever it is you want to do. Do this you're doing a podcast. That didn't exist before. You can make your own little movie on your damn iPhone. You don't have to move to Hollywood. You get your friends together, you get a story. It's your calling card. You're short. You do a short film with your buddies. Everybody pitches in. You make it as good as possible. And then you got that thing. And there's ways to get that content seen. And that's how you get agents. And people are like, how do I get an agent? Well, your agent, unfortunately, you have to do something before you get an agent. I think people think show business is like, oh, I'll get this agent, he'll create me. And but that's just not the way it goes. You have to have done something. And then usually a younger agent will come across it and bring you in. And what the best you can hope from an agent is, because you really do get your own work, really, most of it. And for them to negotiate and make more than 10% extra, so you feel like, well, they're not only by paying their fee, but they're going to be a little more, and they know how to do this, and it's going to be safe. And so that's, I think, the best. If you're thinking that you're going to get to Hollywood, get discovered, and everybody's going to create stuff for you, that's maybe it happens once in a while, but also you're completely in charge of your own art, your own material, you can do it all with these damn phones. And you don't have to wait. You can do it. You still work jobs, get together on weekends, do this stuff, and it also has to be fun for you and good for you. And you have to keep getting better. Every time you film a short, it's got to be better than the last one. And you got to have more technical skills. The script has to be a little better, tight. It's got to tell a real quick story. And you can really perfect what you do. And before, a bunch of people see it and go, oh, that's terrible. So people will, seek you out. That's really what happens today.
Yeah, sure. One last question in the last couple of minutes I have you. Recently, me and my wife went back and rewatched Sons of Anarchy.
Oh,
and this was before I even knew I was going to be talking to you. And I was like, oh, later on, do you have any fun stories from doing the couple of cameos you did on that one? Because it looks like you were having fun when you were recording that.
I did several episodes on season 2 and season 4. Season 3, I think they went to Ireland. But I love the character. Kurt Sutter created the show. He's a buddy of mine, and he's Katie Seagal's husband. I've done some movies with Katie Seagal. I love her. It was a big honor to do that. And I played this Frankie...
Georgie
Caruso, and who made porn. And I'll tell you that women in the episodes were actually porn stars. They were actually, and I recently got together with all those guys at one of these Comic-Cons, and sitting next to us was one of these women who I worked with, and I go, yes, wasn't she in that one episode? They go, do you know who she is? Have you ever been on the internet? I go, yeah, show me. And I'm like, oh shit. She's killing it. She's killing it. I wish I'd known that then. But the thing about that show, a lot of good people on there. And but eventually you're going to die. You're going to die. And what happens is, the 4th season, we read the script, and then we're getting ready to read the table read, start of the week. And then Kurt Sutter comes over and goes, you're dying this episode. I go, oh, no, that's the way it is. And then that's that you're dying. And, I think my character got shot 40 times and put into a trunk, and he was dead. He was definitely dead. So you always want movies that you're doing that you enjoy, or TV shows, characters, to keep going. But that's just not, your job is in my business. It's not like Hormel where I worked, where you can work there 50 years like my grandpa and retire. Man, you get a job and then you'll lose a job. And sometimes you lose it because bullshit. Sometimes because the job's over. Like, they're tight jobs, and they're getting tighter. They do limited series stuff, but you have to accept that, and then you got to be ready to go for the next thing. Keeping your eyes open, and hopefully it'll lead to other things for people like, I saw you on this thing. But I love that show. It was great fun.
Nice. Well, Yeah, always give the last couple of minutes to my guests to plug any socials or anything that got coming up. But before I do that, I just wanted to say thank you for all the entertainment you gave me over the years. I was born in 1986, so
Okay.
literally from the time I was that is very small to
Yeah.
now, you have been in Hollywood, and I've watched so much of your work. So thank you very much. I appreciate that, and I'll go ahead and turn the floor over to you. Anything you'd like to plug specifically? Floor is yours.
No, thank you and congratulations on this. You're doing a great job in this podcast. I appreciate you reaching out to me. I am, let's see, I'm at the Improv, and I do the comedy. I do about three or four nights a week at the comedy clubs, Improv, Comedy Store, Laugh Factory. So you can always just look it up, and they have great shows because they'll be me with five other people and the other five people you're like, oh, and everybody's a little different as people you know about. So that's a lot of fun. And then I start this little movie around here, and that thing, and just keep going. I'm going to do Arnold Schwarzenegger's a Netflix series again this season. Fubar. Going to do. I did one episode first season. I think I'm doing more this year, and that's great fun. Work with him and great cast and really a fun experience. Whatever we'll just keep going. Good luck to you and your wife and your podcast, and we'll see you down the road.
Awesome. Thank you, Tom. Appreciate your time, brother.
Thank you, buddy.